Hello, this is the Reverend James Burton, and I want to say thank you to those who have listened to the previous podcast that I've been honored to do on behalf of the My Jesus Story podcast. And on this particular podcast, I want to do something a little different than I did on the previous ones. The two previous, I have taken scriptures and expounded on those scriptures, dealing with the Christmas season. But today, I just want to speak from my heart about a particular Christmas in my life. And I'll have a couple scriptures that I'm going to read uh, that goes along with this this story of Christmas 2004. Um, in 2002, my wife and I, we had been married 9 years at that point, and just a couple weeks before Christmas, we had our first child, a little boy. And our son passed away the day after he was born from complications. Uh, and so Christmas 2002 was not a very happy time for us. But I want to talk today about Christmas 2004, because Christmas 2004 was our first Christmas that we got to celebrate as parents. We had a daughter who was born in March of that year, and we were so excited about Christmas, our first Christmas as parents, and we were so excited. The entire family was excited, and we were just looking forward to Christmas that year. And then on December 21st or 22nd of 2004, I'm not for sure which day it started, but here in the southern Ohio area where we live, we had a snow and ice storm. Actually, we had two storms that came within just hours of each other, and some of the areas in our area here in southern Ohio received as much as between 12 to 30 inches of snow. And we had ice that came along with all of that. And it was just an absolute mess. And power was out throughout southern Ohio. At that time, we were living in Hamilton County, Ohio, near the city of Cincinnati. Most of my family all lived in Brown County, Ohio, which is some 50 miles to the east of Cincinnati. And with the snow and the ice and the frigid temperatures, and the fact that power was out, we began to have to really, really think about whether traveling in those conditions would be a good idea. And the fact that there would be no power, could we even get together as a family to celebrate Christmas on that particular year? But we decided that conditions had improved enough that we could do the trip and we could travel to be with the family. Um, the power was still out. Um, they did have heat, but there was no electricity, and we just didn't know what the evening was going to be like on Christmas Eve. But we thought we'll still be together. So we made the trip to my parents' house, and most of the family was there. It was probably, I think, this was the first Christmas where my grandfather was not at the family gathering. Because of the power outages, he had to stay at his home because he was heating with a kerosene heater, and he was afraid to leave because he didn't want to leave that running, and he was afraid if he left and turned it off that his pipes would freeze because he lived in a double wide. So on that particular Christmas Eve, I can remember my dad and myself getting out and traveling all over Brown County, trying to find someplace open to buy kerosene for my grandfather. And that was quite an adventure because it was Christmas Eve. Um, certain areas were without power. Uh, and the fact that so many people were without power, when we were finding places open to buy kerosene, they were out of kerosene. So it became an adventure of trying to find what we needed on that evening. And thank the Lord we did finally find it at a little service station in Feesburg, Ohio, little town that I grew up in. But on that evening when my dad and I were out in the snow and the ice and the cold trying to find kerosene, it was an adventure, but it wasn't exactly what we really would prefer to have been doing. But as I look back on that now 20 years later, I think of the verse in Romans chapter 8 and verse number 28 when it says, "And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to his purpose." And you may think, well, how did this work to the good that you had to be out in the cold and snow and search for hours to find kerosene? Well, I'll get to that in a little bit as to how it worked to our good. But the good news is we found what we needed, and we were able to take that to my grandfather, and uh, we took him dinner also, so that he would have something to eat that evening because he didn't have any way to cook with his power being out. Uh, but as the family gathered together for Christmas Eve, the power came on at my parents' house. And it had been out for a couple days. And when the power came on, we were able to prepare the food, and we were able to enjoy a meal together like we had done every Christmas prior to that. And we gathered around the Christmas tree and exchanged gifts just as we did every year. And it may have seemed to not be a big deal to some people. I mean, it's a Christmas tradition that we did every year, and yes, we had some obstacles that hindered. We had some things that made us consider not gathering that year, but we persevered and we did it anyway. And I'm so glad we did. And this is where the verse comes in that I read here in Romans chapter 8 about things working together for our good. See, this particular Christmas of 2004 was not only my daughter's first Christmas, but it was also my dad's last Christmas. And I thank God for that time that I got to spend with my dad on that Christmas Eve. The time that we got to spend together, just he and I, on our little adventure throughout the county. The time we got to spend as a family one last time. See, on that Christmas Eve, none of us had any idea that one of us would not be here the following Christmas. We had no idea that my dad was sick. I don't think he even knew. There was no way for us to know on that December 24th that come March 20th of 2005, we would lose our father. And that's why we have to remember to take advantage of every opportunity, whether it's a holiday or just a day, to just take the opportunity when it comes to spend time with the ones you love. So what if it's not the way you want it to be, or it's not the ideal, perfect situation? Christmas with the family around the Christmas tree, laughing and exchanging gifts and reminiscing of days gone by, That was our normal. But on that last Christmas with my dad, very few things were normal. But I thank God that I took advantage of the time, that I didn't stay home, that I made that trip and had that one last Christmas. Because life is fragile and we never know what day will be our last day. James chapter number 4 and verse 14 says, "Whereas ye know not what shall be on the morrow, for what is your life? It is even a vapor that appeareth for a little time and then vanisheth away." My dad was 58 years old when he passed away. 58 is not very old. I really, really understand that now, as I myself am now in my 50s. But we're not promised that we'll live to be old. We're not promised our next breath. So we have to take advantage of every moment and live our life to the fullest. Live our life in such a way that if tomorrow never comes, we can thank God for the yesterdays and today. Time doesn't stand still for anyone. Just as on Christmas 2004, I celebrated my first Christmas with my daughter. The Lord willing, in just a few days, I'll celebrate my 20th Christmas with my daughter. But it was also the last Christmas with my dad. And for 20 years now, there's been a face missing from the Christmas celebration and from birthdays and anniversaries and just family get-togethers for no reason at all but just to spend time together. And I pray that we have many, many more years as a family to celebrate each other and to celebrate those special days. But we're not promised tomorrow. And there's no guarantee that as we gather around the Christmas tree this year, there's no guarantee that all the family will be there. So this year, as you celebrate Christmas, as you gather together with family and friends, let's take the time through the hustle and the bustle of this season. Let's take the time through all the chaos of family gatherings and parties and celebrations. Let's take the time to let one another know how much they mean to us, and how much we love them and appreciate them. Because again, as James says, we don't know what tomorrow will hold. Our life is just a vapor that appears for a little time and then vanishes away. Let's take the time that God has given us and use it wisely. There's no time for trivial differences. There's no time for fussing and feuding. Let's love one another. Let's help one another. Let's be an encouragement to each other. You know, there are so many times in life where I've let opportunities pass me by. I'm so glad that Christmas I took advantage of the opportunity before me. Yeah, I didn't know what the future was going to bring. I had no idea that it was going to be the last Christmas. But I've determined in my life to live every day like it's going to be my last. To live for God. To love my brothers and sisters. And to do what I can to just make this world a kinder, more gentle place. I appreciate you indulging me for these few minutes as I shared my thoughts about this particular Christmas in my life. Um, and I want to say to you, have a very Merry Christmas. And I hope that you get to be with those you love and you get to hold them close and cherish that time. And I hope that this is your best Christmas ever. God bless you.